Welcome to episode 54 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football, shoot the breeze, and make even the replacement refs cringe. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
54, huh? Sounds like 53 too many.
Uh, I know. We could call tonight the reset. Season 4, episode 1 reset. So today is a special preseason episode. And this season we're going to be live right here on YouTube every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific. Um, so I call it a special preseason episode because we just finished the third preseason game of the 2021 season, and this next weekend, for some odd reason, there's no football at all. And then the following weekend will begin the regular season week 1. So we're jumping into the action a little early so that we can provide you with some unique once a year content as we go over our predictions and thoughts about the upcoming season. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of tonight's episode. We target our episodes to be about an hour. We're going to try to be starting at 8 p.m. and going till around 9. I do put my son to bed just before this, so I get on as soon as I can. So if you like what you hear and want to support us, don't hesitate to like, share, and if you're feeling extra generous, subscribe. But of course, you can like, share, and subscribe even if you think you could run this show better than us. So this week we've got a hello from the off season. We're going to go over just kind of what's been going on in our lives for a few minutes. We're going to talk about changes to the show for this upcoming season. As always, we want to tweak the show to make it better for you guys. We're going to talk about sleepers, flops, and comebacks. This is a segment we've done, I think, every year now before the start of the regular season. We added the comeback team last year, but we've done sleepers and flops, I think, every year. Even our very first episode, I think we did that. And then we're going to talk about one rule change, more specifically a structural change to the season, having to do with the number of games. And then we're going to go over our playoff predictions, which will include the playoff teams, the 7 playoff teams from each conference, as well as who we think the championship matchups are going to be. And lastly, the Super Bowl matchup. And then we're going to go over our predictions for MVP. And lastly, our week 1 regular season game picks. We will not be doing tricky picks tonight. That's right, just we're not doing tricky picks tonight, right? Correct. And there's no darndest things, obviously, since number 1, we haven't had a regular season game yet, and number 2, who watches the preseason? So we don't have anything for you there. Actually, I lied. I've been watching Trey Lance. So if there's something, some teams actually have a reason to watch something in the preseason, but for the most part, we don't. So, okay, so let's dive into our first segment, which is going to be our kind of hello, welcome back. For those of you that are logging in for the first time, welcome to the Practice Squad. We're glad to have you. Joseph, what's been going on with your life in the last 100 years since the 2020 regular season ended?
Well, I took time off work. I took a personal leave of absence, and been trying to do stuff at home. Have not been using my time as well as I would like to, but have been using it and just working on things and developing friendships and working out and losing weight. I think since our last show, I've probably lost at least 30 pounds, maybe even more. Wait, when was our last show?
So our
Probably
last show would have been the Tuesday after the horrifically boring Super Bowl last year, which was
right.
the first, I think, of the first Sunday in February.
So I take that back. So I've probably lost 30 or more pounds since last year, our first show. But since our last show, like of the last year, probably 15 pounds or 15 pounds. So yeah, just trying to stay in better shape, better.
So you're leaning away from offensive lineman status and a little bit more towards defensive end, it sounds like.
Yeah, more like wide receiver, safety. Yeah, because yeah, definitely thinning up. So, but yeah, you know what? I think that's about it. That's really just about it.
Cool.
I'll say this: time has flown. Time has flown by.
Yeah, it has. I have to admit that this off season did go by incredibly quickly. I felt the same way about last season too. Usually the football off season is dreadfully long for me, but this year it did seem to go by pretty quickly. The
We
draft.
forgot to add. Oh, sorry. I say we could also add really quick if I can interject. Tell the audience that we hung out a few months ago. I went up to the Bay Area. I went up to up there and hung out with you guys, and Jeremy and I saw each other and hung out. It was quite fun back in May. So that's something we did.
Yeah, see, that also feels like yesterday, and that was 3 months ago. Yeah, so we did hang out. That was fun, and this time we did not get to go to a football game though. We did that before a couple years ago. We went to a football game, and I think we went in 2018
and 2019.
Did
I think
we?
we went back. I think we went back to back years. The first year was me and you, and that's when we saw the
It was the
Titans
Titans.
Niners.
Yeah, that was 2017.
Oh, you're right.
And
Yeah,
then 2018 was that the Bears game where Nick Mullins threw that pick when he could have just run for the first down at the end.
That's right. Oh no, 2019 is when all three of us watched the playoff games.
Yeah, we watched playoff games together. That crazy Ravens Titans game, because that was the year that the Niners went to the Super Bowl. We didn't go to a game that year.
Yeah, true. So yeah, so it was the last time we went to a game was 2018, and it's a bummer because last year, last year the Dolphins played in Niner Stadium, but there was no fans allowed. Even if we had the freedom to go, like availability, we wouldn't have been allowed to go. So we'll have to wait 7 more years until we can go to a Dolphins Niners game.
Yeah, I know. That's a bummer.
Which, by the way, remember back in college? I remember back in college, and the Dolphins played at the Niners, and we joked about how we'd have to wait 8 years to see this, and then it came up, and then
that was our chance, and we didn't take it.
We couldn't anyways because of COVID. Even if we had the availability, fans weren't allowed in. So yeah, I guess it'll be 16
Well,
years.
they were just not. They had to be spaced apart.
Oh, okay. Well, all right, 7 more years. 7 more years, man.
Which actually, speaking of that, I will give a personal update in a minute. But speaking of that, I think most of the stadiums are back to mostly full capacity. So the home field advantage, quote unquote, should be returning for some teams. So that I actually did allow that to factor into some of my picks. But yeah, so for me, this last off season, February through August, just kind of a lot of family stuff. My son's getting older. He's almost 2.5 now. He had his second birthday in April. So that was really fun. And he's grown up quick. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's not outside of that. Oh, actually, I should mention I started. So this channel was actually built on this podcast, but I also started streaming, doing video game streaming, and also doing Christian discussion topics at the same time. So that's part of my Let's Play and Talk About series that I'm launching, and I've been streaming now for the last 5 weeks or so. So that's probably the big update relevant to this show is just building the YouTube channel. Okay, so let's talk about the changes that we're anticipating for the show. So one change is that in the last year we if you guys remember, and I'll try to do my best to give you a refresher, we would cover two games. One would be more of a deep dive game where we use the NFL Game Pass to watch the condensed version, which is essentially the the uh, the whole game without commercials, right? And then they would cut all of the fluff between the plays. So it was about 45, 50 minutes of actual footage that we would watch for a game. And it was more of a deep dive. And then our second game was just watching the NFL highlights on YouTube, which is typically between like 12 and 15 minutes per game. So just with life and kind of changes in schedules and responsibilities, we felt like this year we wanted to switch to just having highlights, and this allows us to kind of focus on the things that you would have seen if you were on, NFL Red Zone, or if you watched on YouTube, or if you were just watching ESPN Sports. We're all kind of seeing the same stuff and able to have the same discussion about stuff that happened in those games. And it also saves us a little bit of time from having to watch, 45 minutes instead of 15 minutes each week. So that's one change. The second change is that we may not be doing two games every week. It'll depend on A, our availability, and B, on whether or not we think there's two games that are really worth watching. We do still want to fulfill one of the goals that we had from last season, which is to try to watch some of the lesser watched teams. So yes, we do want to try to get a Jets game in at some point this year. We do want to try to get a Broncos game at some point this year. But we may not necessarily be watching two games every week, but we'll let you know when we do our game of the week selection at the end of every episode, like we've been doing for years. What games and how many games we're going to be calling out as games of the week for that week. And then lastly, and this was important too, because we felt like it wasn't really fair to you guys and not really fair to us either to do prep for a game that wasn't very good, because one downside to having the show where we make a prediction and pick the game of the week before the game happens is that we don't know if the game's going to be good or not. So we'll watch the games and then we'll say what the game of the week is. We'll go into the weekend, watch the game, and if it's not good, then we're not going to cover it that week. So we're reserving the right to essentially drop it from our discussion that week. And what we'll do instead, if that was our only game selected for the week and it's bad, then we'll pick a different game. So we're not going to have an episode where there's no games at all. It just may not be the game of the week that we selected. Just to not, who wants to talk about the boring game, A, and B, it's just a waste of time for us to prep to discuss a game that isn't very interesting. So those are kind of the changes that we discussed having. And outside of that, we're going to keep our same main segments. We're going to do news when there's a big article or something to discuss. We really enjoyed those overreaction articles from Dan Graziano last year, so we'll probably continue sprinkle a few of those throughout the season. We do our commentators say the darndest things. We'll do tricky picks, predictions, and the occasional special segment as time allows. So, Joseph, did you have anything you wanted to add to the changes that we're planning to make on the show?
I liked that there's some possible flexible free time to where if we're coming in really coming in really early on a show, like low on time, or we think that there's not much in terms of the games that week, that there's flexibility with the Dan Graziano stuff or other things that come up that can be discussed. And also it'd be cool maybe have some kind of, I don't know if we did this before, but I don't think we've done our Hall of Fame discussion. I don't think we've done that deep dive that we wanted to do. I don't think we do that at the end of last year.
No, I don't think so. We've talked about that for at least a year, but we haven't actually done it.
So I think this could be the year. I think there's some good Hall of Fame deep dive stuff we can get into, and possibly even some draft strategy or draft things. But basically, there's some special topics or things that we can, again, and who knows, that first year, our first season, we did um, like top tens and other things. Well, you know what? People's careers have changed in the last few years. Might have to do some updates, revisions on some stuff like that. So I'm kind of down to revise some things that we discussed in our first season that's changed, and finally get to those Hall of Fame topics.
Yeah, we'll revise running backs, and Frank Gore will now be included as one of the top 10 running backs of all time.
But not a Hall of Famer.
But not a Hall of Famer. Okay, so cool. So that's our list of changes for the show, and we hope you guys stick around to kind of see what the format's like. And as always, we welcome feedback, so feel free to comment below in the video. Or I was actually I just realized that we had talked about this before and hadn't implemented it yet. So I'll just say that we did consider last year starting an email address so that people could email questions into the show and potentially make that a part of the show as well. I haven't set up an email address. It's an easy thing to do. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, just let me know and we can set up an email address, sort of like a question bag. And then occasionally, once some questions rack up, we can do maybe a segment every few weeks on questions. Okay, so our next segment for tonight is, and this is where we get kind of into the meat of the 2021 regular season, is our sleepers, flops, and comebacks segment. So we'll start with sleepers, and the way we've done this in previous years is we have one team per conference. So I guess we'll start with the AFC. Joseph, do you want to go first on this one, or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. So it's AFC, and then what's the order again?
So it'll be AFC sleeper is first. So we'll do AFC, NFC, and then we'll do flops, then comebacks.
Got it. Okay. So I like to break the rules at times, where it's like, okay, we have one, but really there's two picks. So
Joseph didn't tell me about this before the show.
So I'm gonna go Dolphins, but there's a reason why that's an iffy pick. So they were my first pick, and then it wasn't until before the show I was like, you know what, I want to come up with a better one. But so here's why the Dolphins. So first of all, last year they went 10-6, and they could have won 11-5. They had that bad loss to the Broncos and so forth, but they also had a crazy miracle per se win against the Raiders with Fitzpatrick getting his helmet ripped off almost. So 10-6, but 10-6 was almost a little bit better than we expected, right? We did not expect 10-6 last year, and so it's fair to say that 10-6 was probably a little, inflated, but it wasn't unreasonable last year. But then now coming into this year, we had a good draft, have players back. It was going to look better. I would not be surprised if they win 12 games. But they're less of a sleeper because seeing the rebuilds and that's not. I'm trying to say this. Yeah, it's not unexpected. They're going to do well. So that'll be my kind of if sleeper. You can kind of see the reasons why I put them there. But my other choice, and this will be my solidified choice, is the Chargers. I thought about putting the Chargers as the comeback team, but no, I think I'm gonna put them at sleeper. I have a different comeback team, but yeah, the Chargers will be the sleeper.
Okay, so you have the Chargers
/ Dolphins if you want
as your sleeper team. So you stole my thunder a little bit. So I was not going to say Dolphins. So that whole explanation that you had, that was not my thunder. But my thunder was that I picked the Chargers as my sleeper team this year. So kind of my reasoning behind that was that I looked at how all the teams did last year, and I didn't feel like there were any teams that did poorly that I'm expecting to be better that weren't already supposed to be better, if that makes sense. So the Chargers were 7-9 last year, and I don't think they were supposed to be better than 7-9 last year, but I like what I've seen from Herbert, and I think he's going to grow into continue growing as a quarterback. And I think that that division, they have winnable games against the Raiders and Broncos every year, and the Chiefs, they're not going to knock off the Chiefs as the division team, but I think they're definitely going to be in the hunt in the playoffs. So that's my sleeper team for the AFC. So do you want to go ahead and do your NFC sleeper?
Yeah. So my NFC sleeper is again, this is another. I'll give you two, but really one. So my NFC sleeper is the Bears. They were 8-8 last year. They still have a decent defense, I believe. They have Fields. I don't know if Fields is going to be starting a quarterback, but I think if he is, I think Fields could be the real deal, and the Bears can pick it back up, to be a 10-11 win team.
All right, so I think we're gonna have to change order for the next one because I also picked the Bears. So pretty similar reason. The main thing that held the Bears back last year, who still managed to go 8-8 somehow, was Mitch Trubisky. So with Justin Fields, I think they've got someone that will instantly be better than that and has a pretty high ceiling to be potentially a lot better than that. And I think that they have some offensive weapons. They don't have the greatest offense, but they do have a really solid defensive core. And I think that with how they played last year, I definitely see them in the hunt for the playoffs and being better than 8-8, barring some, disastrous injury. So the Bears are my NFC sleeper as well. So we're going to go into flops now, and I'm going to go first. So
really quick. Let me just add. I have a gut feeling the Saints. I know Breeze left, but Winston, this is just kind of gut feeling. This is like a maybe, but I have a feeling. Can't explain why. Maybe the Saints actually might not be so terrible this year.
So, but would that be a sleeper though? Because they were 12-4 last year.
Yeah. So
I guess it's more based on. I guess it's technically the sleeper is based on. We should have defined this at the beginning. The way I think about it is the sleeper is a team that is not. It is not common. The common consensus is that they're not necessarily supposed to be good, but we think they're going to be good.
Yeah, and so I think that they do fit that. I think that definition, though. I think they do based on Breeze leaving and there being. I think. Yeah, and Michael Thomas not probably starting to begin with, but yeah, I think the Saints will be better than what is commonly expected. So they're kind of an ish pick, but yeah. So go ahead with the flops. You go in AFC or NFC first?
So I'm going to do AFC first.
Okay.
So my AFC, actually, both of these picks might surprise you a little bit, and so which means I'm hoping we're not going to pick the same one, because the rest of the show is going to be really boring if that's true. So my AFC flop is the Colts.
You're kidding.
And the number one reason why is that I do not trust Carson Wentz. I don't think he's going to come to the Colts and have some revival. I think he is a mediocre at best quarterback who has shown a lot of flaws, and he had his chance with the Eagles, and I don't think he's going to come and just start lighting it up on the Colts. The Colts do still have a strong defensive core, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were sort of like the 2020 Bears, honestly. If they went 8-8, maybe 9-7, just because they have that strong defense. But offensively, I think they're going to be putrid, and I don't see them necessarily competing for a playoff spot this year, to be honest.
So I have two flop picks, and one's barely stronger than the other. And I think my stronger one, I picked the Colts as well.
Oh boy. Here we go.
And basically, for a lot of the same reasons that you said. They were. I think they still have probably a decent offensive line. Their offensive line has been touted. I don't know how that still is the case now. They do have a good run game. Oh, I forgot who they had. Oh, yeah, Jonathan Taylor, and a decent wide receiver core. But you know what? You need your quarterback in there. And yeah, I don't think the Colts will do it. But it is crazy though. If you put in top quarterback into the Colts system, like they're the team. They're right up there with the Chiefs and Bills. But they don't have that. So gave a lot of good reasons that. And then my other one, the Patriots. I don't know what the consensus is. I think people maybe might be riding high on the Patriots. But I don't know if I trust them very well. I think the Dolphins. I think there's a good chance the Dolphins have a better record than the Patriots. I have confidence in that. And yeah, I don't really trust the Patriots this year. Oh, and by the way, they're rolling with their drafted rookie quarterback, Mac Jones.
Yes, I heard about that. They cut Cam Newton. I think today.
Oh wow, I didn't know they cut him. I thought he might be the backup. I didn't know they cut him though.
No, they released him. Let me verify that so I'm not giving fake news. Let's see, Cam Newton released. New England, ESPN 11 hours ago, New England Patriots released Cam Newton, Mac Jones to start at QB.
Yeah, that's
I mean, that's the right call.
Yeah.
I'm a bit surprised they released him instead of keeping him around as a backup. Maybe he asked to get released.
Yeah, maybe he wants to be a starter somewhere else. I just don't
Which I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like teams kind of wrapped up all the starting positions.
Yeah, I can't think of a team that's desperate enough to pull Newton in. So one last comment about the Colts is, so Phillip Rivers, here was his stat line last year. He had 4,200 yards. What was his completion percentage? Just ESPN.
It was high. It was high. I think it was high. It was 69.
369 over. Yeah, I'm not going to do the math, but decent. 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Carson Wentz not going to do that. He's not going to have those numbers. So I think they're not in a good spot this year. Okay. So you had Colts and Patriots. So my NFC flop is, drum roll please, the Saints. And I know you're not going to pick that because of the explanation you just gave about them being the sleeper team. So, my thinking behind this is that they really got as far as they got last year because of mainly because of their defense and because they had a strong run game and sort of a serviceable quarterback performance. But I think now that Drew Brees is completely out of the picture, I don't think that this Jameis Winston Taysom Hill combo is gonna succeed. I don't think it's gonna succeed. I think Jameis Winston is gonna be the same guy that throws absurd numbers of interceptions, the same number of interceptions as touchdowns. He's gonna be the same quarterback, and he's not gonna have Michael Thomas for the first 6 weeks. So I don't see them. They're definitely not going to be 12-4, and I think they're going to be struggling to be playoff contenders this year.
All right. This one, the NFC was tougher to come up with a flop, but I know that this team has good weapons and they've got good stuff, but I got to see it to believe it. That's the Rams. My flop is the Rams.
Oh, that's actually a pretty good. I like that pick.
Yeah, not a ditch on Matthew Stafford, like him. I think Jeremy and I have had kind of a soft spot for him, and just this kind of what happened with the Lions, and just him being there for so long and not able to really build around him very well. I just don't know if it's going to work, and I think people are really hyping up the Rams, and I just don't really see the hype, to be honest. It's not that they won't be a bad team. and it's not even precluding them from making the postseason. You know, maybe they're a 9 or 10 win wild card. I think there's more hype and expectation behind them than is the case, and that's kind of the definition of our flop here.
Yeah, I think that the Rams are they've kind of been in this same boat for the last like 3 years, where they have a good defense and they've had an up and down quarterback situation, and now they're in a situation where, because they traded quarterbacks with the Lions, that they're kind of like, there's a lot of risk with that, associated with that, right? We don't know what kind of chemistry Stafford's going to have with the Rams. And I think that on a, career basis, I trust Stafford more than I do Goff. I don't know if Stafford is good enough to get them to that elite level that people are probably thinking. And so I like the pick, because I don't necessarily think they're going to sink in terms of record, but I definitely think they're going to be worse than people think.
By the way, you want to know another good sleeper pick for the NFC?
Who?
Cardinals. Because they were 8-8 last year, though that was kind of their fault. They should have been better, but they're either going to be an expected team. The whole point of a sleeper is kind of unexpected.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I think that they're not the Bears are a better sleeper team, I think. But I think the Cardinals fit the definition. And I think Murray is going to have a really good year again. And I think the Cardinals can do some damage.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Cardinals, but I felt like they were a little bit too expected to put them in there.
Fair. That's fair.
Okay, so then we're going to do last for this segment is the comeback team. And the difference between sleeper and comeback is, a sleeper is a team that people don't necessarily think is going to do well, that we think is on the rise and is going to do well. A comeback team is a team that was supposed to be good last year but had a down year and were expecting to bounce back. Or had a down couple of years and were expecting to bounce back.
Yeah, because it's hard. Yeah, I like that. The extra breadth there helps, because the former definition, I think, is too restrictive.
Yeah, I wouldn't keep it at just 1 year. I think we can look at sort of the recent history of a team that's really supposed to be better than they are and is gonna be better this year.
Tell you what, so to make it balanced, I'll start off with the AFC. You'll start off the NFC.
Sounds good.
All right. So my comeback team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think now it is a bummer. Their running back ETN, he had a season-ending injury. He was their running back they drafted in the first rounds. Went to the same school as Trevor Lawrence, so some chemistry there. And he got injured and he's out the rest of the season. That's a huge bummer. But I still think the Jags, I think Lawrence will do decent for a rookie quarterback. He won't put up Herbert numbers. Like, Herbert legitimately had the greatest rookie quarterback season of all time last year. I don't think Lawrence will do that, but I think he'll play solidly. And I think the Jags will, see last year the Jags, they were 1-15. Okay, they were 1-15. I think the Jags are going to win 5 or 6 games, and that's a big improvement in the right direction. So the Jags can be where the Dolphins were last year in like 3 years.
Maybe 2 if they have a good draft.
If they build right, if ETN, the running back, comes back healthy and he's ends up being a solid guy with Lawrence, and they have a good draft, then they could do that. But yeah, I'm picking the Jags.
I think the Jags were the one that we said had a really good draft this year, right?
They had a good draft, yeah. I liked their draft. People weren't as high on their draft we were, but I thought they had a good draft. I really did.
Yeah, I think so. Did you get a chance to watch Lawrence at all in the preseason?
I've only seen a couple throws.
Okay, he looked pretty sharp.
Yeah, actually, no, I only saw one throw of it, but I just trust he's going to do well. And I mean, like he comes from a good college in the system that gave us Deshaun Watson, you know, so got the tangibles. So yeah, who'd you
Okay.
go with?
Um, so my AFC comeback team is also the Jaguars. So for all
Well,
the reasons,
the only other pick is the Bengals, to be honest, right? Or
yeah. Although I would actually, I feel like the Bengals are almost more of a lean, almost more towards a sleeper than a comeback, just because they have been pretty bad for the last couple years.
fair enough, yeah. And Burrow might be. I think Burrow's coming back this year, and
Oh,
yeah,
that's right.
that's.
Did he have an ACL last year?
I don't know if it was an ACL, but it took him out for a while. And they, oh yeah, and then they got that wide receiver that he played with. I think Burrow played with Jamar Chase for 1 year. So yeah, the Bengals could be in the sleeper category. Yeah. But yeah. So you went with Jags, huh?
Yeah, I went with Jags. All right, so I'm going first for the NFC, right?
Yeah.
I think this pick is, to me, it's brain dead obvious based on what happened
Yes.
last year that this pick has to be the 49ers.
Oh, all right. Not going 49ers, but that's a good
Oh,
pick.
interesting. Okay,
But
well,
that's
I'm
only because
fascinated to hear what your pick's going to be. So my reasoning behind that is they were 6-10 last year. They had the second worst games lost due to injury in the history of the NFL last year, and they drafted a quarterback in third overall last year, and so we're not going to be necessarily relying on Jimmy to stay healthy this year. We added pieces to the offense and the defense, and we've got guys like Nick Bosa coming back after the torn ACL. So I think we're gonna jump right back into the action where we were in 2019. The last year was just a really unlucky year for them, for us.
so the Niners are a really good pick, and they might even be better than the pick that I did. But I think you'll agree that my pick is good still. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna distract you by turning my forgetfulness of what happened to them by basically just playing up the Niners. Whereas the Niners have just had such a winning culture the last couple of years. That,
What?
that when I just saw when I skimmed over their name and looked at them, I just thought, there's no way. The Niners are good. They're just expected to do well. So um,
Let me inform the audience of something. If you ever hear Joseph using NFL jargon, he's being disingenuous. Just let me tip you off.
oh man.
Winning culture.
Um, no, so the Cowboys, 6-10. Dak Prescott coming back, big injury. So I went with the Cowboys because looking at seeing because I looked at the preseason standings, like that's where I took my snippets from, and so seeing them dead last and remembering about Dak Prescott, like now obviously for you, you're going to see the Niners go first, but as an NFL fan, people are going to go to the Cowboys more, not because they're America's team, regardless of where they are or not, but because of Dak Prescott and the big injury, right? Whereas the Niners, it was like a culmination of all of these injuries. So your average NFL fan would probably pick the Cowboys to be the comeback team because you know it was it's one of the more popular players who was having a record pace season on a famous team, right? And so that one injury was huge. So I think the Niners overall are a better pick, but the Cowboys are right there with them, and it's because of Dak being out. And they did make some good additions with their defense. Um, so with Dak coming back, Elliott's probably having a better year. I think last year was a down year. I think he's the only running back ever where starts his career where each year gets slightly worse and worse for the first few years. Not bad years, but just worse. So I think he'll probably pick it back up. Dak will be back, and they add some defensive players. And so Niners and Cowboys are both big picks, but we went different on that one.
Okay. I think that the Cowboys are probably the only other team that I would consider for that spot. But in my mind, the 49ers are just clearly the team that deserved that award.
No, and I do agree as a whole as a team. they're gonna have at least what, a 6-game swing, right?
They should. If they don't, I'll be very disappointed.
Yeah, no, so yeah, if you guys win less than 12, you'll be disappointed. I agree
Oh,
with that.
absolutely, yeah.
I agree.
With
I
the
agree.
talent that we have, it would just be completely wasted.
Now, quick question. Maybe this will show up in the predictions, but I can ask you now. Do you think Jimmy will start or Trey? And then second question, who do you want to start?
So I think, and all signs point to Jimmy starting, but I think he's going to be on a short leash. And I am okay with that because I think in what I've seen in the preseason, Trey is he's been improving each game, but he's still making some mistakes that I'd rather see him make in practice than in regular season games. So I don't think he's going to get benched for the whole year. But he is. I think he'll play. He'll probably start at some point, but not right away.
Okay.
Okay, so that finishes up our second segment of the night, which is sleepers, flops, comebacks. Our third segment is about the rule changes, and there's really not, to my knowledge, there were not any major changes to the rule book per se, but there was a structural change. Yeah, there was a structural change to the season, which is that the regular season was expanded to 17 games and the preseason was reduced to 3 games. And there's now this awkward weekend gap between the preseason and the regular season, which I was commenting to Joseph before in our pre-show before we went live that I can't recall a year where that's ever been the case. So I think we briefly talked about our thoughts about the 17 game season maybe last year because we knew it was coming last year. But I think we were talking on Sunday about the math getting all messed up. And thinking about like, well, is a 13-3 team now really a 14-3 team? Is a 10-6 team really an 11-6 team, or a, you know, I think it's going to take several years for us to see how that how that extra game really plays out statistically. But I think this is just a terrible decision for a league that already struggles immensely with injuries and that cutting down a preseason game, like, who cares, because the starters weren't playing a full game anyway. They were playing like a quarter and then resting. So you had a thought about the gap, that extra weekend gap between the preseason and regular season that I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, so I'll do that last. I'll bet a few other ones. Yeah. The first thing is, how could this have anything to do with injuries? Starters are now playing more football than they did in previous years. Like even if you cut out, they didn't play a single preseason snap versus the last, in the past history of preseason games. Like, you just added an entire full game that they're going to be playing because the regular season matters it's not the NBA or baseball. Each Sunday is more important than those sports. So each game is more important. So you just increased their playing time and possibility of getting injured. So how could there be any argument that whatever they did, they could have cut out the entire preseason and it would have done nothing for the starters? So there's no argument here about benefit of player safety. So I'm surprised the NFLPA allowed this and how this wasn't just so obvious and there wasn't more pushback.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to jump in and say to your point about injuries, it's almost like people thought, well, it's still 20 games, so therefore it's the same. But we know that the play time for starters isn't going to be less because they reduced a preseason game. It's going to be more because they're starting for a full extra game.
Yeah. And then the point about that we can agree is also dumb is if the whole point is decreasing injuries, why would you still target for it to be the same? Why not cut out a preseason game and still have 16 games? Like, now that you and I have talked about before, that still probably wouldn't do anything. But at least in their logic, why not stay with 16 games and remove one preseason game? Like this decision doesn't make any sense. And then the next one is, where does that extra game come from? Like the math, what I like about the NFL, like the math has been perfect. Get your 6 games from the division. I think you get 6 games from in conference, um, or 4 games in conference. And I think you get 6 games out of conference where you play one entire division. It worked out great. Where does this extra game come from? And how does it rotate on what, 2, 4, 8 year schedule? Like, where does this extra game come from? Because the math worked out well before.
Yeah, it's gonna be um so it's 6 division games, 4 out of conference games from the same division, so that's 10. Then you play a full division within your conference, that's 14. And then the other 2 came from the the teams that had the same relative divisional position as you from the other 2 divisions.
Okay.
So now that 17th team is going to be an extra out of conference game.
Yeah.
Right,
So
because we looked at I believe you and I looked at the schedule and we counted, and I'll just verify this while you're talking, but we counted 5 out of conference games.
yes. Remember that vaguely.
So now that's just going to rotate through. So you'll play, I don't even know how that works. Is it the same position rotating through? So if you were 4th in your division, do you play the 4th team in, let's say, the AFC North and then the AFC South, and right, just like you basically rotate through the position once every 4 years? It must be something like that.
Yeah. Okay. We can dig into that later. I think there's a problem with that, but whatever.
Well, but and the other problem, sorry, there's so many problems. The other problem is that the number of home and away games is now not the same.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. That's really dumb. Oh man, that don't get me started, dude.
We already got you start. We already both got started.
Yeah. So back to the main point that Jeremy wanted me to bring up was, um, we had talked. I think this was in our first season, maybe the second. I think it was the first season. Um, I remember we were ripping on Jerry Jones because he was one that was proposing 17 games and the idea of decreasing preseason. And we talked about, look, we brought up the state function of the ramp, right? Injuries get ramped up and with play time and guys going from off season and not playing and ramping up to playing. And so the point that I brought up in the pre-show with Jeremy was, you know, with this gap in between preseason and regular season, like, is that going to make things worse? Players kind of play and the starters don't really play as much. Now there's an extra week of not playing, and it's almost like a bye week now. So I'm just curious, does that extra little hitch that we have now between the preseason and regular season, is that going to possibly cause more issues first few weeks or first half of the season before the buys?
Yeah, I think that's a concern, and I'm also concerned about the quality of play week to week, not just because more guys are going to be getting hurt because there's an extra game, but also because I'm worried that coaches are going to try to pace their starters a little bit more. So we'll see more, D line and O line rotations. We'll see more linebacker rotations. We'll see teams maybe putting an extra wide receiver in the mix so that they have more bodies out there. We'll see potentially, teams trying to integrate more, more players into the secondary and more into their stable of running backs, right? Like you still only have 53-man roster, but I just feel like there's going to be more backup quality players getting more time due to the fact that there's going to be more starters getting injured just statistically, and B, because the starters will need to get rested more to last for that time. So it's just it's I do worry about the quality of the games decreasing a little bit. And then you and I also talked about off air, we talked about the idea of once games 16 and 17 comes around, if a team's already 14-1, are they just going to basically sit out the next two games? Right? Because we see that with teams that are guaranteed the first seed, that they'll just sit their starters for the last game. But we might start seeing that for the last two games for some teams.
Yeah. And this ties into your good point. It was also off air, but you brought up tonight as well. Is what is the new effective 14-2 team? Is the new 14-2 effective team or effective record? Is it 14-3 or is it 15-2? I think it's probably more likely 14-3. Especially when I guess when you consider the bye thing as well, because we looked at this. So there have only been, this has probably been in like when they added the 16 games, which was I think sometime in the 70s, there have only been 6 15-1 teams ever. And in between 1998 and 2017, there was on average less than one team per year that won 14 games. That was 14-2. And so I think Jeremy brings up a good point. If a team is 14-0 or 14-1, they're going to be resting a lot more. And if they have things locked up, I mean, if a team has it locked up at 14-0, they could start resting 3 games. They could.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So yeah, I think 14-3 is the new 14-2 effectively, and like 15-2 is probably going to be as rare as 15-1. And that's only happened 6 times ever.
Yeah, I honestly, man, I think the ratings for those last 2 weeks are going to be bad. The TV ratings.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and then we're going to get this weird. It's my prediction. Tell me if you agree or disagree. I think we're going to get this weird, 8, 9, 10 win team shuffle for the wild card spot, and how the math kind of gets weird with that 17th game.
Well, I think now with that extra game, 8-win teams no longer have a chance.
True. I think, but I guess going into that last game, you'll have 8, 9 win teams doing the shuffle for that last game, and that might make some things interesting. But again,
but only for those games, though. All the other games are going to be teams just not playing.
Yeah, exactly. You'll have like teams that are 3-13. Like, what are we doing? The irony is you might have a 3-13 team win against a 13-3 team because they'll both be playing the backups, and the backups from the bad team could win possibly. So this is not a good decision. And this is like the NBA, right? Oh, more than half the teams get to go to the playoffs. Now, thankfully, the NFL's not like that, but look at these decisions, dude. They add up a wild card team. Okay, that wasn't a terrible idea, but it's in this direction. Getting rid of the bye was a terrible idea. And then now adding an extra game. Why don't we just send half the teams to the playoffs, okay?
Yeah, no, let's be the NBA.
Let's just, everyone gets a chance. You know what? Why don't we only have how about this? Let's just have an 8-game regular season, and it'll determine the seeding, and we'll send every team to the playoffs, and we'll just have a massive playoff bracket. It'll be like March Madness, but worse. March Madness is actually kind of cool, but even if Jeremy doesn't like March Madness, it'll be worse than March Madness in his mind.
Yeah, I think the thing is that and feel free to comment below in the video if you disagree with this, but oh my gosh, I completely lost my train of thought. I was going to make a point about I had a really good point to make, and I don't remember what it was. I don't think it was about teams resting. It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me. So let's move on. We're gonna move on to our next segment. I'm pretty sure it was a good enough point that it was a gem. It'll come back. So our next segment is our playoff and MVP predictions. So we did this last year, and last year was the first year that that there was only one bye team. So I think we're just going to go through the 7 teams that we each think are going to make it from each conference, and I broke it down by division winners and wild cards, and I think Joseph, you just did the 7 teams,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll start with the NFC. We'll switch it up this since we did AFC first last segment. We'll do NFC first this segment. Um, so for the NFC, my 4 division winners are the Niners, Packers, Bucks, and Cowboys. And my wild card teams are the Seahawks, the Saints, and the Bears.
Wait, the Saints? I thought the Saints were a flop for you.
They are, but I think they're still going to be good enough to eke out a wild card spot.
All right.
Remember, they were 12-4 this year, so a flop that lowers them to 9-8 is still potentially good enough to get a spot.
That's fair. I'm sorry. Who were your wild card teams again?
Wild card teams were the Seahawks, Saints, and Bears.
Okay. So my 7 teams, because I can pick division winners except the West. The West. Oh no. Okay. You know what? I'll just quickly do it here. So, it's gonna be the same as you. Niners, Bucks, Packers, Cowboys. Same. For the division winners, and then my wild cards are the Bears. Same. The Seahawks. That's the same. But I'm going Cardinals.
Okay, and I had trouble with that one. I had Saints, Rams, and Cardinals all vying for that last spot.
That's fair.
So, and real quick, I remember the point I was going to make from the previous segment. So the point I was going to make was someone can comment in the comments if they think this is wrong, or if they found a good article on this. But my thinking behind why the NFLPA was willing to sign up for that 17th game season is because there was probably a compromise about adding the game because of ratings, and the ratings would lead to more revenue, which then made the NFL more comfortable about raising the salary cap, which then meant that players could get paid more. Right? I can't imagine that players in general, just speaking for kind of the NFLPA in general, would sign up to play more and risk their bodies more without more salary.
Yeah, they're like,
there had to have been some kind of connection like that, and I don't have proof for that, and there may have been some investigative journalism that was done about that in the off season. So if you can find that, feel free to reach out to us about it. But that's kind of what my suspicion is about that situation.
So I'll start off the AFC.
Okay.
Actually, really quick, let's just quickly give our bye guess. So I think I think the Bucks will get the bye. I wrestle with this. Bucks or Packers? I think the Bucks or Packers will get it.
Do you think the Packers are going to have another 13+ win season?
I think Aaron Rodgers is just been kind of angry the last couple of years, and this is last year. I think this is the last year he can be angry and can go somewhere with it. So, here's the thing. Well, I'll give that comment later. I don't want to give a spoiler, but I think the Packers or Bucks will be the bye team. I'm sure you'll pick the Niners, which is a good pick, but sure.
I think it's either going to be the Niners or the Bucks, probably. But I think I would lean a little bit more towards Niners. I genuinely think, and this is me being as objective as I can be, I really do think that with the talent that the Niners roster is entering the season with, that they are the best team in the NFC.
Do you think you'll win 14 games?
I think we can if we're healthy.
All right, that's fair. So AFC division winners. So Bills, um, Titans. The North is tough. North is really tough, dude. Because Steelers, talking to my brother, and he made some good points about the Steelers, and they just, I mean, yeah. Browns, are the Browns the real deal? If the Browns really are the real deal, dude, like they had a good offseason as well, and their team is very well balanced. The Ravens are good. I don't think the Ravens will be as good. So I can't really put my finger on a North team, but I think it'll be between the Browns and the Steelers. But that's a tough one. And then for the wild card, we have the other two North teams, right? So Browns, Ravens, Steelers. Those three are making the playoffs, and can't fully pick a winner. And then, of course, the obvious, the Dolphins.
Of course.
Yeah, and the Dolphins, like, I think they're going to give the Bills a run for their money. I don't think they'll win the division. They may not even finish one game behind. They may finish 2 games behind, but I think they'll give them a run for their money. I think that they have a chance of splitting the two games they play against each other, and yeah, I think they'll be within a game or two of each other.
Okay. Well, you and I again had very, very similar picks.
And really quick, as for the bye team, the bye will either be Bills or Chiefs. That's just obvious.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And calling which one that is a little bit tough.
Yes.
Okay, so you said it. So I'm actually writing it down this time so I remember. So you said either Steelers or Browns for the division winner?
Yes.
Okay. So I actually had the Ravens as the winner, and it was really close between them and the Browns. I struggle with the Steelers because I don't know what their quarterback situation is going to look like this year. I mean,
Big Ben. It's Big Ben.
well, I know he's playing, but he was awful last year, and I don't know if that's going to change. Right? He really struggled last year. Remember the last like 6 games last season?
So let me look.
They had an awful stretch last year. They were like, I think they were 10-0, and then they've lost lost their last 4. No, they were 12-4, but they've lost. Let me just look at their record real quick. They
lost 3 out of the last 4.
3 out of their last 4, but let's see.
Wait, they finished 13-3.
They lost what? No, they were 12-4. I'm looking at 2020.
No, hold on. I'm sorry. Big Ben didn't play a game. I'm looking at Big Ben's stats. So he must have missed.
Oh yeah, no, he didn't. It was Mason Rudolph was for the game 16, but yeah, no, they lost 4 of their last 5.
Yeah. So Big Ben wasn't terrible, but he wasn't amazing. So if Big Ben did what he did last year, they're a playoff team, and they might not win the division. But if he has a good year and or other players around him step it up, then I think they can win the division. So
I think it's going to come down to which extreme of the season do they fall? Are they the first 11 game Steelers or the last 5 game Steelers?
The Ravens, the North, any pick in the North is good. Obviously, besides the Bengals, but any of those 3 teams is good. The Ravens, though, it's like they've had to rely on like the last, 2 years ago was the greatest rushing team season of all time, and last year was also a good rushing performance. And so, how long are they going to keep that up? And is their defense as strong as it was before? Like the Ravens, for me, the argument is more like they're a good team, they're a playoff team, they could be a legit contender, but diminishing returns, degradation over time. Their peak was 2 years ago, so that's my reasoning.
Okay. So yeah, I had Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, Titans, and then for wild cards, I had Browns, Steelers, Dolphins.
We have the same. We have the exact same.
And I think the Chargers could potentially be in the hunt if the Steelers are unexpectedly bad, or maybe the Dolphins don't have quite as good of a season as we think they will. But I think
Or
those
Baker Mayfield does too many commercials.
right, or he does too many commercials, then we could maybe see the Steelers or the Chargers in the hunt for one of those
That's
spots.
a good point.
Okay, so then we had the championship Super Bowl. So I'll just go through mine real quick. So I think it's actually going to be pretty similar to last year, except I'm swapping out one team. So I've got
I wonder who it is.
yeah, I know. So I've got Bills Chiefs for the AFC Championship, and I've got Niners Bucks for the NFC Championship, with with a Niners Chiefs rematch in the Super Bowl.
And I'm assuming you have the Niners winning that.
Oh, I actually didn't pick a winner. I mean, they better. Otherwise, I may never watch football again.
Okay. So I think we have the exact same here. So I have Bills Chiefs, and I have Bucks Niners, and I have Niners Chiefs in the Super Bowl. But I'm sorry, my friend, but I have a repeat of 2019 of the Chiefs beating the Niners.
Well, if they cheat again, they're definitely going to win. So I mean, we'll just have to see what happens.
You really like. You should be more angry at Tom Brady. This is kind of his fault. It's funny because this actually happened with the Falcons. Like this, so many people can be mad because if the Chiefs won last year, you may not be coming off of that super hype. You win 2 in a row, hasn't been done in a long time. You beat Brady. You might pull up on the gas a little bit. But I think Mahomes is going to be mad, and I think that they won't allow last year to happen again. And I think the Chiefs will be more hungry than the Niners because there's more experience on the Chiefs. So I think the Chiefs were humiliated, dude. They were embarrassed, and I think that for that reason. And here's the thing: is your quarterback situation. If Jimmy G drops down, or if he gets traded or injured, and Lance has to come in, no, that could be a big deal. So I think the Niners will get to the Super Bowl. Bucks might stand in their way, but I think they can do it. But I'm going Chiefs.
I can't live in a universe where
I know.
the Niners go through another stretch like this, like they did in the Harbaugh years. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Then, for your sake, not meant to be. Hopefully they get knocked out by like the Bucks or Packers in the. Because you'd rather. I know this is tough, man. I don't want to give you a hernia before before your child turns 3 years old, but I think you'd rather see the Niners not go to the Super Bowl than go to the Super Bowl and lose, especially the Chiefs again.
If the Niners don't go to the Super Bowl and the Chiefs play really well and beat whoever made it, then I'll feel much better than if the Niners don't make it and then the Chiefs drop a dookie.
True, but both of those are still better than the Niners going and then the Chiefs edging them out, and right?
Oh, let's just stop talking about this. This is too. I have to start this season with hope after what happened the last 2 years.
Next segment. What's next?
We're gonna do MVP and then we're gonna go to our predictions. So I actually just listed one MVP. So do you want to do yours first? Because I think you had a couple contenders.
Yeah, I listed 3. I'll start with the least likely, but I think this year, like going into this year, I think this has got to be one of the most predictable MVP things ever. This got to be up there. So this third one's a wild card. I'm gonna throw you for a loop here. There's no way you would guess this. So I'll give you a chance. Who's my third? Now I'm not caveat because I don't want to give you a fair chance. I'm not saying I would pick them. Saying there's a chance they could win. So that's your hint. But who would you guess? My third contender for who could win.
Aaron Donald.
So that's actually a really good and simultaneously lame guess for reasons that we both know.
No, I think I'm gonna try to get on the same wavelength and get in your head and read your mind. I think I want to say this is like a Joe Burrow kind of pick, like a rising star kind of player. Am I way off base?
You're not way off base, but Christian McCaffrey,
Oh, okay.
coming back from the injury, um, if he gets the touches, like look out for him to break the yards from scrimmage record. I think it's like 2,500 something. Um, you know, if there's some kind of decent quarterback play, look for him to have another 1,000 season and doing more than that. Um, yeah, look for him to play big. Now we've both talked like he could have greatest combined season of all time. Still shouldn't be more than a quarterback unless he's just doing it all by himself, like yards after the catch and everything. Then maybe there's an argument for it. I had this discussion before. Um, but so in reality, there's a very small chance that he should really be in the discussion to deserve it. But trust me, for all the people at ESPN and around the sports world who sadly put Aaron Donald and the other players into this discussion each year, it's going to happen, right? If he has that big year, it's going to happen. And then the next two, they're just so obvious. These will be the real contenders, and that's Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. I have Mahomes at 1 and Allen at 2, but you know they're both. I think they're both going to put up just a nice gunslinging fest.
Oh, so
And
you don't think Rodgers is going to be in the hunt again? You said he was going to be angry one more year, so
I did say that. I did. So maybe he's my real third. He's my real third contender. But I just think that Mahomes and Allen are still going to put up monster years. Because last year, like Rodgers had to put up a historic season to beat those guys out. And Mahomes didn't play a 16th game. So I think Allen's going to improve even more, and Mahomes is going to be, I think, on par where he was when he won his first MVP. So yeah, I think Allen and Mahomes get a slight edge. So
Okay, yeah, I think this year is also pretty predictable. I picked Mahomes. I think the only scenario where he wouldn't make it is if he, gets hurt and Rodgers has another good year, or I could also see Allen up there as well. But of course, you know how this always goes. It's everybody thinks it's Russell Wilson for the first half of the year, and then people start changing their mind.
which okay. Oh my goodness. So a quick question before we move on. If Mahomes has another amazing season and wins the MVP and does well in the postseason, and I'm not saying win Super Bowl, but does well in the postseason performance, that solidify his Hall of Fame status, given what he's done so far?
Let's see. This is
Fourth,
his what, fourth season or fifth season?
fourth. He didn't do much in the first season, I don't think.
He was he was drafted in 17, but played behind Alex Smith, right? And then he played all 2018, 19, 20, and then now he's starting his fourth
So yeah,
season.
yeah. So it's really his fourth year. His first year, he has one of the greatest seasons of all time. His second year was solid. Didn't play a full season. Wins a Super Bowl. So he has back-to-back Super Bowls. He goes to a third Super Bowl. He puts up a second MVP and a second really good season. I mean, if he gets injured next year and never plays again, I wouldn't be opposed to putting him in the Hall of Fame.
I feel a lot more comfortable with one more full season,
After
but
this, yeah,
but
one more.
I think there's a discussion.
That's fair. So if he, all right, so let's say he plays a fifth season and he plays well. He's a top 3 quarterback, and he takes him to the playoffs kind of thing, and then he gets injured. Yeah,
Oh yeah, if he plays 5 full seasons like that, absolutely, yeah, he's a slam dunk for
yeah.
sure.
All right, so you're saying there's a chance for him to be a slam dunk after next year, or there's a discussion, but the fifth year is like the criteria that's
Oh,
met.
so okay, I misinterpreted what you said. I thought you meant if he's played 3 full seasons and then he plays part of next year and then gets hurt, would
No, no,
he
no,
be
no.
considered? And
No, I'm.
I don't think I think that would be hard. But I think if he plays 4 full seasons like that,
Oh yeah, no,
I
I'm.
think
I'm
that's a
saying this.
pretty good case.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm saying that if he plays all of next year or this year, takes him to a third Super Bowl in a row, and he wins the regular season MVP, I think the case is over.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Okay. Okay. All right. Cool.
Okay, so with that agreement, we can now move on to our last segment of the night, which is our game predictions, our game picks. So, just to review our records from the last couple of years, in 2019, we always list the number of games that we won and lost from the previous week, as also in addition to our running total by percentage. In 2019, I had a 61.3% accuracy. This includes both regular and postseason games. Joseph beat me out and had a 63.9. And we almost both improved in 2020. I jumped from 61.3 to 66.9, and Joseph went just down slightly from 63.9 to 63.4 last year. So we're both, I'd say, generally on the uptick here, and I'd like to see us both at a minimum above 65%. I'm shooting for, we'll see, maybe 68% this year. It starts to get tough once you hit around 2/3.
Yeah, dude.
Because
70%
because that means you're basically going, on average. Well, I guess we have. No, it's still the same number of games each week. So yeah, it's on average about what 10 and a half and 5.5 or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's tough. That's tough.
Especially when you balance out the fact that the first 3 to 6 weeks are kind of shuffling, so you don't get a full. So there's a lot of guessing.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So our week 1 predictions this year, I'll go ahead and read off the first game, and then we'll alternate like we always do. So the first game is, and I went in order, the same order that ESPN has. So the first game is Cowboys at Bucks, and I'm going Bucks.
Same. Eagles, Falcons, going Falcons.
Same. Steelers at Bills, I'm going Bills.
Same. By the way, Eagles, Falcons, 2 not so good teams, but Falcons I think will win. Yeah, Steelers, Bills, great way to start. I would have picked the home team probably on this one. So Bills. This next one's tough. Vikings, Bengals. I did originally pick Vikings. I'm changing my pick because Joe Burrow is starting. I'm just gonna give him that first game, see what happens.
Joe-rated Burrow. I have the same pick as well, Bengals. I don't think the Vikings are going to be ready, and I also think they're going to be disappointing again this year. So I pick Bengals. 49ers at Lions. Going Niners.
Same pick. Cardinals, Tennessee. I went Cardinals.
Okay. All right. I went Titans, but I think that should be a good game. I think I'm next, right? This is an odd game. Yeah. So Seahawks at Colts. This was a tough one, but I have to stay consistent with the fact that I don't trust Carson Wentz, so I'm going with Seahawks.
So I thought about that, or I thought about the Seahawks and them, but the gut feeling. It's a gut feeling. The Seahawks are on the road, first game of the year. I don't know if Wilson's gonna. I don't know. So I went Colts, but I know that's an iffy one. That's an iffy.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I mean, this is all just guesswork this first week of the season anyway. We're trying to sound all professional and like we know what we're talking about, but it's really every game is just a coin flip. So Chargers at the football team. I'm going Chargers.
Same. Oh wait, you did 2 in a row.
Oh, I did. Sorry.
Yeah.
You'll go with the next one.
All right. So Jets, Panthers, going Panthers.
Same.
And then Jaguars, Houston, going Jags, because I don't think Watson is gonna play even if he's on the team still. So
right. Yeah. Yep. I picked Panthers and Jaguars as well. Next one is Browns at Chiefs. I'm going Chiefs.
Same. Though that could be a good game. And then Dolphins, Patriots. I'm going Dolphins. They're starting Mac Jones. And yeah, they're in New England, but it's not winter yet. And I think the Dolphins are hungry. So.
Okay. Yeah, I picked Dolphins as well. Packers at Saints. I'm going Packers.
Same. Broncos, Jets. Sorry, Broncos, Giants. Blah. But Going Giants.
Least
That's
of
a
the
tough one.
week, maybe.
Yeah, that's a tough one, but I'm going Giants.
Same, same. I think the Giants were actually in consideration for sleeper for
Okay.
me. But yeah, I went Giants as well. Uh, Bears at Rams. I'm going Bears.
This is a tough one. I'm going Rams.
Okay,
Maybe they start off well because Andy Dalton is starting. They went with Dalton over Fields, and the Rams are home. Maybe they got a little defensive fire. So tough one,
interesting. They're
but yeah,
starting Dalton over Fields, huh?
yeah. I looked it up. Right.
So I
That
didn't
might have.
know that. I don't. That might
You
have
want to
changed my decision, but regardless, I that's a weird decision.
if you want to flip it, that's okay. Because I
No,
actually
I'm
just
okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'll keep it how it is.
okay.
And then you're on the last one.
Ravens, Raiders, and I'm going with the Ravens.
Same. Okay, so we
Okay.
have three different Cardinals at Titans, Seahawks at Colts, and Bears at Rams.
Okay.
And obviously no buys this week. And if I had to pick a game of the week, it would be gosh. I think Steelers Bills is going to be good. I think Browns Chiefs is going to be good. Those are probably my two most interesting ones. Although, to be honest, I'm probably going to watch the highlights of the Dolphins Patriots game because I do want to see Mac Jones, and I think this will just be a good classic divisional matchup.
Yeah. So my original three picks were Browns, Chiefs, um, Dolphins, Patriots, and then Bears, Rams. Um, but with Fields not playing, that kind of. But I definitely see Steelers Bills being a good one. Um, so I'm okay with going with either Browns Chiefs and or Dolphins Patriots. Probably watch both regardless. But let's pick one of those two. What do you think of which one of those do you want to pick?
Probably Browns Chiefs.
Okay, let's go with that.
Okay, I'll write that one down. So, I don't remember if I actually said this or not at the beginning of the show, but I'll say it since we're wrapping up now. That so Joseph is unavailable for the show next week. So this is our first and only preseason show. There's no football this weekend. The first regular season game is the following weekend or the following Thursday and then following weekend. So we won't have a show next Tuesday. So we're not actually skipping any action by not having the show, and then we'll pick up again the week after that. So and that's the plan at least. So um, we'll watch this game, and then I think like we said before, if the game of the week is not so great, we'll reserve the right to pick another game that is better to watch.
Yep.
All right. So, just so again, to reiterate, there is no show next week. Normally, we will be on every week. There is a chance life gets in the way sometimes, and occasionally there's a busy work day or something happens with the family. So we may miss a small handful of episodes during the season, but we do try to be live every week at 8 o'clock on Tuesday night. So that's a wrap for this episode 54, our season 4, episode 1, if you will. If you didn't fall asleep during tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. Now that with the way that the recordings work, it uploads, it's just live, and the videos are available right after we sign off. So you can go ahead and rewatch or watch for the first time as soon as the episode is over. So as always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.